Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Tomorrow's Talent Series Q&A. My name is Jana Toomey, and I'm an Assistant Director with the Michigan Tech Center for Educational Outreach. Tomorrow's Talent Series is all about showcasing in-demand careers through virtual job shadowing videos, Q&As, and additional curriculum resources. Today, we have a very special guest, Beth Tonberg from Medline. Hi, Beth. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me today.
Great to have you here with us. So Beth is a product development manager with Medline. And if you haven't checked out her video, be sure to head on over to the Tomorrow's Talent website and watch that video. But thank you to all of our viewers who are with us today. If you have any questions that you would like to ask Beth, feel free to use the Q&A feature, which you can see at the bottom of your screen there. All right, so with that, Beth, can you talk a little bit about what a medical device engineer repurposer entails?
Yeah, of course. So my job as an engineer within our medical device reprocessing team is to develop testing and cleaning processes for a variety of medical devices. I use different CAD programs to design components. I work with other engineers from various backgrounds to ensure all devices are safe and effective through testing. I work with our team in manufacturing to make sure that we can process these devices, and also work with our sales team to make sure that they're marketable, and then we can work with the hospitals that we're selling these devices to.
Awesome. So what aspects about this field made you want to pursue a career in it?
So all through middle school and high school, I always really enjoyed math and science, and I wanted a career that would allow me to utilize these skills. When I looked into the programs at Michigan Tech, I found biomedical engineering, and the appeal there was really working on products that helped people and being able to be a part of advancing medicine, working on different things that I knew would make a difference in people's lives while using those skills of math and science to do that.
That's great. So what kind of education or training was required of you for this position?
So my background is in biomedical engineering. I have a bachelor's degree from Michigan Tech, but I work with people who have engineering degrees of all different varieties and science degrees as well. So I work with people who have backgrounds in biology, mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, software engineering, chemical engineering. It really all depends on what you're interested in doing within the medical device field. If your goal is to design the next greatest pacemaker, a background in mechanical engineering with electronics would suit you well. If you're more interested in how devices interact with the body, learning about biology and biomedical engineering are great options.
It sounds like a really diverse field, which is probably also really exciting.
Yeah, we touch on a little bit of everything within medical devices. You know, a device has to work mechanically, but it also has to work electrically, and it has to interact with the body in a way that won't cause adverse reactions.
So what are some of your favorite aspects of your job?
So my job, I'm really lucky to work with super awesome people. Like I said, I work with people of all different backgrounds. And that means we get to collaborate on unique challenges and work together to solve problems. So it's really fun to come in to a new device that I don't really know quite how it works and learn from others how the electrical components work, how those mechanical components work. And I'm able to bring a perspective of how the device will interact with the body. So working together, having brainstorming sessions, throwing ideas up on a whiteboard are my favorite parts of the job.
So it sounds like, just understanding the devices, since you aren't the original manufacturer of some of these devices, is one of the challenges that you face. What are some of the other problems that you solve, during those brainstorming sessions?
So you're exactly right. We don't design these devices. A different manufacturer designed them, and we have to understand them so that we're able to reprocess them. So a lot of the challenges are, how are we going to get this device clean? There's a lot of different ways to clean a device, refurbish it, and sterilize it, but each device presents its own challenges. Certain devices might make sense to take it apart. You take all of the pieces apart and put it into baths to clean it. But other devices, it doesn't work to take them apart. When you take them apart, something breaks. is you have to find a way to clean it whole. Well, that creates some different challenges in how do you know that the inside of it is clean if the device is whole? So, coming up with different inspection ways, different microscopes, testing methods, we're able to use different testing methods where we're testing for residual tissues or proteins and carbohydrates left on these devices and figuring out exactly how we're going to demonstrate to the FDA and different regulatory bodies how we got these devices clean was a pretty unique challenge that comes with medical device reprocessing.
So how many hospitals do you work with that you are collecting these devices from for repurposing?
So I don't know the exact number, but we're working with hospitals all across the country. We work with some different major health systems. Mayo Clinic is one of our large customers, as well as other large hospital systems throughout the country we work with. So I think we have at least probably 5 to 10 hospitals minimum in every state that we're gathering devices from. And what we do is we work with these hospitals, we put a bin in their operating rooms. So they have a special Medline renewal bin. And once they've finished with the surgery, they put these devices into a bin, and that bin gets shipped to our factory here in Redmond, Oregon. So we're working only within the US right now. We're looking at some different ways to get international, but hospitals all across the country.
So what are some of the benefits of repurposing these medical devices? Why are we not just using them once?
So there's 2 main benefits to medical device reprocessing. We're looking at both the cost savings as well as the environmental impact. So every time a new device is used and then thrown away, it's sent to a landfill. So when we're able to reprocess these devices, we're saving those devices from going to the landfill. So we work with our customers to actually track how much waste they're diverting from the landfills. And some of our customers are looking at the thousands to hundreds of thousands of pounds of waste diverted from going into the landfills. So there's a huge environmental aspect to the reprocessing industry. The other side is the cost savings. So these medical devices aren't cheap. They're very expensive. Some of these electrosurgical devices can be $1,000 and they're used for 5 to 10 minutes in surgery. When we take these devices and reprocess them, we're able to sell them back to the hospitals for about half the cost. So they're able to take that savings and use it to improve the care that they're giving to their patients. If they're saving $500 on every device, they might be able to have another nurse on staff or maybe able to provide more equipment in the OR. So that's one of the other aspects that medical device reprocessing really benefits.
Wow. So are these devices just used once and then they have to be reprocessed, or do some get used multiple times before they come and they get put into your bin?
So all of the devices that we reprocess are single use. And this single use is designated by the original manufacturer. So they develop a device and say this is only good for one use. So when we collect these devices, essentially they're garbage. And we're able to reprocess them usually an average of 2 to 5 different times. We have some devices that we can reprocess up to 10 times. It all depends on how the device is made. So some of these devices are a piece of plastic. They're just one piece of plastic. They're used in an equipment that doesn't touch a patient. And so those are easier for us to reprocess, and we can reprocess them up to 10 times. Other devices are electrosurgical devices that go inside a patient during a laparoscopic surgery, and they have a lot of complexity to them, different electrical components. So we usually can only reprocess those about 2 times before we deem them at the end of their life.
So do the original manufacturers of these devices that you repurpose, do they change their product designs often, or do you tend to see one model kind of running for a few years?
That's a great question. So we see the original manufacturers changing their devices quite often. We don't work with the original manufacturers. They don't particularly like the work that we're doing because we're taking sales away from them. So they don't call us and tell us when a change is coming. We have to watch for that in our production facility. So we have highly trained staff on our production lines who are watching for changes in these devices. They know everything about these devices, every color that's on them, every nook and cranny. And if they see something come in that's different, they flag it. And that's when our engineers work with them to determine how substantial is this change. Is this change something that we no longer can process and we need to go back and test the device? Or did they simply change the color and nothing else about the device changed and we can continue to reprocess it as we did? So we're constantly seeing changes. The original manufacturers are always coming out with new devices that replace something old. It's like getting your new iPhone. You always want the newest great thing. Well, we're having to keep up with that new iPhone. We want to see what's coming out, what technologies they're developing, and determine ways to reprocess those so our customers continue to save money.
Interesting. It sounds like a really special field to be in. Are there a lot of other companies like Medline that are doing reprocessing, or are most companies the original manufacturers?
So there are a couple different reprocessors in the US. I think there's about 8. And each of these companies, we do similar things. We are working on reprocessing medical devices. Some of them have more of a niche field that they focus on a certain space of medical devices, but we're all working to do the same thing of reducing the cost of healthcare and saving waste from landfills. Most of the other reprocessors are part of an original manufacturer company though. So Medline's reprocessing is really unique in that Medline doesn't make the devices that we reprocess. Several of the other reprocessors in the US, the original manufacturer makes the device, and then they have a separate division that reprocesses it. So it's something that sets our Medline renewal team apart from the other reprocessors out there.
Got it. So moving on to kind of what happens to the device when you get it and it's repurposed. What are some of the tests that those devices undergo to get approval to be sent back to hospitals?
So there's a lot of testing that we do. So any medical device that's going to market, whether it's a new device from an original manufacturer or a reprocessed device, has to go through a series of tests, and those are defined by the FDA and ISO. So we follow the same set of guidelines the original manufacturers do. A couple different examples of the different areas that we're testing: electrical safety, biocompatibility, and cleanliness of those devices. So for example, electrical safety, these devices that get plugged into a generator, we need to make sure that that device, once it's in a surgeon's hands, there's no way that it's going to shock the patient or the surgeon if there's an electrical short, that it has safety measures built into it. So the original manufacturer will design these components into the devices, and we will test to make sure that our reprocessing didn't change anything about that device, so that when it gets into the surgeon's hands, that we know that it's safe and we're not going to put any patients at risk. For biocompatibility, this is a big category that all medical devices go through testing, no matter whether they're new or reprocessed. So with biocompatibility, what we're testing is to see if a device would cause a reaction, like an allergic reaction such as a rash, if it came in contact with a patient. So there's a lot of different materials that go into medical devices, and we're putting different chemicals on these devices to clean them. So we want to make sure that we get all of the chemicals off once this device comes in contact with the patient, that there's no way that they would get an infection, a rash, that they would have swelling. So we're able to test for these while we're developing our cleaning process for the devices. And we wrap all of that information up and we send it to the FDA, and we go through a process that's called the 510K process. It's really cool how the FDA is able to review all of the data we send them to determine if our devices are safe.
We have a viewer here who wants to know, what is the coolest device that you have worked on?
The coolest? Okay, well, it's not going to sound crazy, but the coolest device I think that I've worked on is an Air Transfer Mattress. So this device kind of looks like a sleeping pad that you would use for camping, but what it does is it goes underneath a patient and it has holes on the bottom. So you plug it into a pump, so it fills it up with air, And when a nurse needs to move a patient from one bed to another, they're able to easily slide them. So it saves back pain and injuries for the healthcare workers. So when we are working on developing these devices, we get to simulate use on them. So with these devices, I got to lay on top of a mattress that gets filled up with air and dragged back and forth across tables. So I think these devices are super cool because one, they're pretty fun, and two, they get to save healthcare workers, for injuries. These healthcare workers are moving patients all the time. So these devices are able to lighten that load and reduce the strain that goes on to the nurses that are keeping us safe.
Going off of that testing that you referenced, how do you test for something like the allergic reaction that you referenced earlier?
So that testing is super specified by the ISO standards that exist. So there's standards and guidance documents out there that tell you how to test for certain things. So there's ISO standards that tell you how to test for biocompatibility. And what they do is we send these devices off to a lab full of scientists that know exactly what they're doing, and they're able to extract the device and anything that it might have on it and create a serum. And they use that with a simulation. Sometimes it's with animals to see if they inject that into a rabbit, will they exhibit an allergic reaction? So they're able to really see what is on the device and will it result in any sort of reaction. And they do this in both simulated with cells and in animal studies.
Interesting. So how has the profession changed since you first started?
So I've been a part of medical device reprocessing for about 2.5 years, and I'm seeing a large push toward the reprocessing of these high-dollar electrosurgical devices. And with our ever-growing cost of healthcare, hospitals are trying to come up with ways to save money. And so we're seeing a push from the hospitals asking us to reprocess these devices that are pretty complex and cost them a lot. So these are more of these devices that get plugged into a generator. They're typically used in laparoscopic surgeries. So there's something that's being put through what they call a trocar to enter a patient's abdomen, and they will do different things like seal tissue. So they go through, and there's some of them are bipolar and some of them are ultrasonic energies. And they're used to seal different tissues, to make cuts and incisions inside of the body. And they're pretty complex devices, but it's really the areas that hospitals are seeing that they need to save money.
Where do you see the future of this field going?
I see it continuing to grow. So as I said, with the cost of healthcare ever rising, reprocessing is one of the best ways for hospitals to save money. So I see that reprocessing will continue to grow. So Medline Renewal has had immense growth throughout the time that I've been with them and throughout their existence. We're actually doubling the size of our facility right now. We're adding another 50,000 square feet because we outgrew our building that is 3 years old. So, this industry is just growing super rapidly because it's an effective way to reuse these devices, and hospitals are really seeing the benefit of what reprocessing can do for them.
Awesome. Are there new technologies that have recently been introduced either in the devices that you repurpose or technologies that help you do your job?
Yeah, so something with the original manufacturers, like I said, they don't totally love what we do. So they're coming up with new ways to stop reprocessing. They're putting different softwares, firmwares, electronics into these devices that essentially put a kill switch into them. So once the device is plugged in, that generator knows that the device has been plugged in and it can't be used again. So we have a team that's working to overcome that, that's trying to find ways around this, what we call anti-reprocessing, these electronics that make it so the devices don't work anymore. And it's pretty complex software and electrical systems that are being built into these devices that we're trying to overcome. And I see that continuing as we continue to battle the reprocessing side versus the original manufacturer side.
Wow, so sneaky.
It's pretty cool. Our team here in Oregon is a group of smart cookies that are figuring out the ways to overcome these electronics.
So we've talked a lot about the technical and kind of the hard skills that somebody would need to be successful in this field, but what are some of the soft skills that somebody who is working in medical device, either engineering, repurposing, some of the other positions at Medline, what are some of those soft skills that they would need to be successful?
So definitely communication. So it's really important to be able to relay your thoughts both verbally and written to other people. Being able to relay how you tested devices, how you want to test devices, and both a report that you might send off to the FDA, as well as the technicians on our production line. You have to be able to communicate these thoughts clearly so that people can understand what you're doing. And having an open mind and creative problem solving kind of mindset is really beneficial. There's several different ways to reprocess the device, and the first idea isn't always the best one. So being able to really think through things, look at things from a different perspective, walk away from something for a day and come back to it with an open mind is a great skill set to have within this industry.
All right. So what advice would you have for students who may be interested in getting into this field?
I would say never rule anything out. I had no idea that medical device reprocessing existed. I did not know that it was something that people were doing, and I'm so glad I found it. So as you're trying to figure out what you want to be when you grow up, don't rule anything out, because there's so many opportunities out there that you may not know exist. Keep your mind open to all of the different possibilities. When I was trying to figure out what kind of medical device engineer I wanted to be, I thought I was going to design the next new pacemaker. That was what I had my heart set on. I'm so glad that I kept my mind open to finding different ways that I could make a difference in the world through different types of technologies and different ways of looking at the medical device industry. So if you have your heart set on a certain industry, think about all of the different ways that you can be part of that and all of the different ways that you can make an impact on that industry and the world.
That's a really great message. Lastly, is there anything else that you would like students to know about this field that we haven't discussed yet?
I think the biggest thing is just, there's so much more out there. And as we continue to create huge waste streams with our single-use products, think about the different ways that you might be able to reuse, follow the reduce, reuse, recycle mantra, and think about ways that you can reduce the waste that you're creating in the world.
All right, Beth, thank you so much. And thank you to our live viewers who submitted questions today. Another thank you to our partners of the Tomorrow's Talent series, My STEM Network, Upper Peninsula Michigan Works, Bay College, Gogeeba Community College, and our CTE directors. If you're interested in learning more about in-demand career fields right now, please head on over to our Tomorrow's Talent series website. All right, Beth, it's been a pleasure talking with you today.
Thank you so much.
All right, bye.